Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Marko Stanimirovic. I'm a senior front-end engineer at JobCloud, member of NgRx team, and organizer of Angular Belgrade meetups. And in my spare time, I'm also a hobby musician. You can find me on Twitter at MarcoSTDev. So as you probably know, there are two, let's say, main NgRx packages for the global state management. We have NgRx Store and NgRx Effects. And today we will take a closer look at the NgRx Effects package. Namely, I'm gonna show you some common pitfalls, and we will also see the ways how we can avoid them. So the pitfall number one is naming effects based on the action they are listening to. And here in this example, we have NgRx effect that listens to the composer added success action to be dispatched. And when this action is dispatched, it will display the success alert. However, if we take a closer look at the effect name, we cannot conclude that, right? Because effect name is equal to the action that it listens to. It would be much better to name effects like function, to name the effect based on what it does. And if we do that in this example here, the name can be show save composer success alert. And now we can easily conclude what this particular effect does only by looking at its name. Also, here we come to another advantage when we name effects like functions, because when we name effects like functions, our effects are in accordance with open-closed principle. We can now listen to another action in order to perform the same side effect, and there is no need to change the effect name anymore. Pitfall number two is creating unnecessarily complex effects. And here you can see one large and unreadable effect. And let's quickly see what it does. So first, we're listening to the opened action from musician details page to be dispatched. When this action is dispatched, we are selecting musician ID from route, and then we are fetching musician from the API using musician resource service.getMusician method. However, this method will not return musician object with all required properties that we need in our system. So we need to trigger another endpoint. In this example, we will call band's resource.getBand in order to fetch band from the API, because we need a band name for each musician. And then based on the API responses, we will return success or failure action. And that, as I said, this is large and unreadable effect. We can make it to look much better. What we can do here is to move this highlighted part, to move this fetching logic actually from NgRx effect to services. So we can create musician service. And first thing that we need to do here is to inject musician's resource and band's resource. By the way, I'm using resource suffix for plain Angular HTTP services. So in musician service, we will have getMusician method that assets musician ID and returns musician with all needed properties. And if we now go back to our effect, we can simply replace this highlighted part with a single service call. And as you can see now, our effect looks much better. It's, of course, it's simpler, and it's pretty straightforward, like in many NgRx tutorials. Pitfall number three for today is creating boiler effects. And this is what I call boiler effect. So and when some of these two actions is dispatched, we are returning or dispatching another action, musician's actions.load musician. On the other hand, we have another effect, load musician's effect, that listens to this action and loads musician collection from the API. However, there is no need for boiler effects. We can simply get rid of invoke load musician's effect by moving off type from invoke load musicians to load musicians. And now we will have a single NgRx effect but the behavior in our application will remain the same. Pitfall number 4 for today is performing multiple side effects within a single NgRx effect. In this effect here, we are performing 2 side effects. First is delete song API call, and the second one is displaying error alert in case of error. And in general, this is not a good practice. It would be much better to have NgRx effects with single responsibility. In other words, to perform a single side effect per NgRx effect. So in this particular example, we can create a first effect called delete song, where we fetching a song from the API, and then we are returning success or failure action based on the API response. And also we will have here show error alert NgRx effect. This effect will listen to the song's deleted failure action, and it will display error alert in case when this action is actually dispatched. So as you can see now, we have 2 NgRx effects for the same behavior, but with when our effects have single responsibility, they are also reusable, because we can, for example, listen to another action here in show error alert to display the error alert. For example, here we can listen to some created failure action and display the error alert when created failure action is dispatched. Pitfall number 5 is dispatching multiple actions from a single NgRx effect. And we can see that in this example here. So here in this NgRx effect called load album, we are fetching album by ID from the API. Album as a data structure in this example contains 2 collections. It contains songs array and composers array. So here we are returning, or we are dispatching 2 actions sequentially. We are dispatching load song success and load composer success. Under the hood, load song success will update song's feature state, and load composer success will update composer's feature state. However, there is no need to dispatch multiple actions from a single NgRx effect. We can apply good action hygiene, and if we do that, we can return a single action, a unique event that indicates that album is loaded successfully. And we can pass songs collection and composers collection as a payload of this single action. And then if we take a look at the songs reducer and composers reducer, you can see that we are now listening to the same action in both reducers, but in songs reducers, of course, we will take songs collection in order to update songs feature state, and the same is for composers in composers reducer. Pitfall number 6 is performing side effects in components. Here we have one simple component, container component called songs component. And in NgInit method of this component, we are first selecting songs from the NgRx store, then check if songs are loaded, and if they are not already loaded, we will dispatch load songs action. However, this is in general very bad practice. We should not perform side effects in our Angular components. It would be much better here to move this side effect from NgRx component to NgRx effect. Sorry, from Angular component to NgRx effect. And if we do that, this is how our effect will look like. So here we will listen to the songs page actions, to the opened action from songs page to be dispatched. When this action is dispatched, we will select songs from the store. Then we will check if songs are loaded, and if they are not loaded, we will load them from the API using songservice.getSongs. In the end, we will of course return success or failure action based on the API response. And if we now go back to the songs component, you can see that it looks now much better. In our NgInit method, we only have a single line. We are only dispatching an action, a unique event that indicates that song's page is opened. Okay, so here you can see the entire list of pitfalls that we saw today. I also showed you the ways how we can avoid them. And before I end up for today, I would like to show you one relatively new feature from NgRx store package. It's called Feature Creator. So for each feature state, we need to define a feature reducer. We also need to create feature selector and selector for each feature state property that is needed in our application. And last but not least is to define the feature name in order to register feature reducer to the NgRx store. So we can consider these three building blocks as NgRx feature. And since NgRx 13, there is a new function from NgRx store package that can help us to create the NgRx feature. It's called create feature. And this function accepts feature name and feature reducer. As you can see, feature reducer is created in the same way as before. So we are using create reducer function from NgRx store package to create a reducer, and we are using also on function also from NgRx store package to define case reducers. And here I destructured songs feature object, so the object that is returned by the create feature function. As you can see here, we have feature name and feature reducer that we passed here, but create feature function will also generate some selectors for us. It will generate a feature selector by the feature name. So the name of feature selector will be select song state because feature name is songs. It will also generate a selector for each feature state property. In our state, we have songs, active song ID, and is loading properties. So it will generate select songs, select active song ID, and select is loading. And this feature, this function, I said this behavior is achieved using a template literal types from TypeScript. And we can now use these selectors from songs feature object in our components or in NgRx effects, but we can also use them to create another selector. In this example, we are combining actually select songs and select active song ID selectors from songs feature to create select active song selector. Also, feature registration is a bit easier because we can now pass the entire feature object to the store module.for feature method in order to register our feature reducer to the NgRx store. And that's all from my side for today. Thank you very much for attention.
Awesome. Wow, that was, I think, short and precise. Thank you very much, Marco. If anyone will have a question, you please ask any question that you may have. Anyone? You could just unmute yourself and just ask. Don't feel shy. Okay. Anyone? Okay. As probably we wait for question from any of the attendees. So just a question for you, Marco, based on your experience working with NgRx. Like, what are some of the, I'd say, common mistakes that people make when it comes to working with step management tools, and in this case, NgRx? Like, what has been your experience so far? Like, what have you seen that has been the biggest mistakes, like any developer, whether a beginner or someone who's experienced, make when it comes to this?
Yeah, so in my opinion, one of the mistakes that people make with NgRx One of the mistakes that I also made in the past is treating actions as commands. What I mean by that is when we define an action, when we treat it as command, inside of the square brackets, we usually put the feature name. So a single action can update only a single feature state. And this is in general a very bad practice. We should apply good action hygiene, or in other words, it would be better to treat actions as unique events. So each action should describe a unique event that happened when that particular action is dispatched. And in that case, when we apply good action hygiene, we will never have a situation where we dispatch multiple actions sequentially. So that's one of the common issues that I saw with NgRx.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else probably has a question or a comment? I think today we have Joy. Joy, I remember Joy, we had a session with Joy last week, and it was about step management using the Akita pattern. Joy, if you don't mind me putting you in the limelight, how different or how similar is NgRx to the Akita pattern? Like, are they in any way, I don't know, the same thing, or do they have like different ways of doing things? Do you mind commenting on that?
Sorry, is this question for me or?
Oh, no, one of the attendees. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So could you repeat your question?
Yeah, so I was just like say that last week we had you and Gente talking about step management using the Akita pattern, right? So how similar or how different are they when it comes to between the Akita pattern and NgRx? Like, are they different or are they similar? Yeah, that's the question.
I'd say they are similar because most of the methods I see Marco, okay, what is explained basically is what we basically use on Akita, most cases. So I think in terms of functionality, they're both the same, but I think NgRx is more of reactive programming. Am I wrong? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'd say they're not so different. Yeah, because most of the methods that Marco has explained are the same methods that we use on our code base and our personal projects. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yeah, from my perspective, sorry. Yeah, regarding Akita, it is a more, let's say, service-based state management solution, unlike NgRx store.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anyone else has a question or comment? Okay. Right. If there are no questions, I think I'd like to say thank you. Yeah, thank you, Marco. I think this was one of the most concise session and the shortest session we've ever had. And probably people not asking questions would mean they've understood some of the things that they need to avoid when it comes to NgRx effects, which is a good thing, I'd say. And if everyone is good in that case, I'd say we've come to the end of the session. Oh, okay. I think there's someone who was asking a question. Yeah, someone just messaged me asking about memoization in NgRx. Would you care to speak about that, Marco?
Yeah. When we use create selector function from NgRx store package, we are actually creating memoized selectors, which means that projector function of selector will not be executed when we execute the selector if input arguments of that particular projector are not changed. And that can improve our performance a lot, especially if we have some expensive calculations in our NgRx selectors or projector functions of NgRx selectors.
Okay, great.
By the way, you can read more about memoization in our NgRx.io official website.
All right, thank you very much, Marco. If
You're welcome.
there are no questions or comments, I'd like to bring this to a close. Do you have any closing remarks, Marco?
No, I just want to say I got the questions like when we should use NgRx or not. In my opinion, you should use NgRx if you like it. If you don't like, you can use, if you prefer service-based state management solutions such as Akita, you can use Akita, or you can use also NgRx component store for the global state management. So that are my closing words.
Yeah, sorry. I think when you just talked about it, that's when like a question popped up. I think there's also a question that sometimes I get used to be asked is when should you make that decision of like, I want to use a state management tool, and in this case, for example, NgRx, right? Because I know there could be cases for like you don't want to be hitting your API endpoint every now and then and all that, but then when do you make that decision of like, I want to start using NgRx, or I want to?
Yeah, so with NgRx, you can split your architecture into different layers. You can move your effects to the separate layer, to the effect class. You will move your state updating logic to the reducers, selection logic to the NgRx selector, so you can make your container components clean. That's the reason why you should use NgRx, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Joy. Sorry, you had something.
I have a question. So, not a question, but a request. Do you have a repo which you can check that kind of implementation you've just explained?
Sorry, you mean do I have a repo with these examples from the presentation?
No, the one we've just explained where we separate the effects on one side and state on the other, and yeah.
Example up in NgRx repo, so github.com/NgRx/platform, and in projects directory you can find example up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. If there's no other question, yeah, I think for step management, especially for things like NgRx, when I started like learning it, it was more like an interesting concept. It was like, okay, so you can actually do something like this. And I remember, I think one of the comments or reasoning I was given is that, for example, you have an API endpoint that is going to cost you, I don't know, a couple of dollars every single time you hit it. Like, you know, that those API endpoints you get, and you're being told that you're going to be charged this amount of money for this number of hits. So for things like NgRx can really help you, because you're always going to make sure that you have the data when you visit it at the first time, and therefore when that same user comes back later on, what NgRx is going to do is just go to the store and pick whatever was already there. If something has changed, of course, updated. But other than that, you don't really have to hit your endpoints every now and then. So I think that was an eye opener for me, for always looking at, you know, you want to save on costs, of course, when it comes to like your APIs and all that. At the same time, you want speed so that every single time the user comes in, they know there's this data already. So it's much easier for them to just fetch it instead of having to wait the API to load from your servers or from wherever. And yeah, so yeah, that's a really great point. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone who's joined this call. And
It was a good session, Wayne.
All right, thank you, Zoe.
And Marco, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks everyone for joining. Have a nice evening, guys. Bye bye.
All right, bye guys.